We have a real treat today. Rise own 13-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster Jimmy Roberts. Thanks so much for joining us, Mr. Roberts.
Man, it's good to be with you.
So to call Tiger Woods' last couple of years a mess would be a massive understatement. What's it going to take for Tiger to get back on track to competing for majors, the Tiger that the sport wants to see?
It's a complicated question, and it's a question that everybody's asking, and I'm not sure that the answer is simple at all. Let's break it down to its component parts. First of all, I don't think he's ever going to be what he was, because what he was a freak of nature. If you look back on the history of the game of golf, and you look at, and now I don't have the exact numbers here, but I'm going to ballpark it for you, and I think I'm probably going to be pretty close. Jack Nicklaus is generally acknowledged as the greatest golfer of all time, and at the height of his success, he won about between 10 to 12% of the times he played. Tiger, during an equivalent time in his career, won 30% plus. So he doubled the winning percentage of the greatest player of all time. Now that should tell you that he was somewhat of an outlier. That type of success is just not sustainable. Anybody who plays golf understands that there are days that you wake up and you have good days and you have bad days. I often maintain that Tiger Woods was the best golfer in the world, not because he shot 63 more often than anybody else, but it was because he shot 76 fewer times than anybody else. Golf is a game where people struggle, even the best struggle. Tiger just never struggled, and I think basically it was what they would call in mathematics a reversion to the mean. Basically, this is the way the game is. Everybody struggles with it at some point or another. He just never did. And I think that you combine that with the fact that he's had an enormous amount of physical problems. He's 40 years old, 39 years old right now, but he's gotten to the point where his body isn't bulletproof. You can do a lot of things when you're 23 that you can't do at 40. And so that's a factor. I think another big factor is that there was a time when he was winning, when he was unbeatable, principally because of his talent. But there was a psychological element too. And I think that there's an old story in golf that involved Jack Nicklaus and a player named J.C. Snead, who happened to be Sam Snead's nephew. And they asked J.C. once about going up against Jack. And he said, well, the problem is Jack knows he's going to beat you. You know that Jack's going to beat you. And you know that Jack knows that he's going to beat you. The point is that Tiger was able to get in a lot of people's head because he just really never exhibited any downside. He would always win when he went head-to-head with people in big situations. Once there was a crack in the armor, then I think that things kind of snowballed for him. He wasn't unbeatable anymore, and people saw that he wasn't unbeatable anymore. So it's kind of a long, very complicated answer, and I don't even know if I've answered your question, but I think he needs to get healthy again. I think he needs to kind of get a hold of certain aspects of the technical aspects of his golf game, and then we'll see.
Right, and as you said, he's 40 years old. Once you reach 40, golfers start to go downhill. It gets really hard to win majors, and that's that's what we hear about nowadays. Jack Nicklaus's major record, 18 majors. Tiger has 14. Do you believe there's still a chance he can potentially break that or tie it? Or do you think it's just too little too late?
I don't think he's going to do it. You know, I think really the greater question was, we once assumed that he was going to break the PGA Tour record for most victories, which was held by Sam Snead, which is 82, and I think Tiger has 79 now. At one point, that was a foregone conclusion. 2 years ago, he won 5 times on tour. I'm not so sure he's going to get that record. I somehow believe, because of his extraordinary talent, that he will win another major championship. And who knows? Again, things could snowball for him. He's just a talent like we've never seen before. But I think that there are some demons that are living in his golf game right now, and he needs to exercise them before there's any reasonable expectation that he could challenge any of those records, whether Jack's or Sam Snead's.
Absolutely, and he has the Masters coming up. Now, you've written about, you visited Augusta National Golf Club. In your opinion, what makes Augusta National so special? Because players, spectators alike have been quoted saying it's the closest thing to heaven. In your eyes, what's so special about it?
Well, I think first of all, there's a tradition there. And well, let's take a step back. It's the only one of the 4 major championships that's played at the same venue every year. So in practical terms, people are familiar with it. You know, there are a lot of people, you know, you sit down to watch a U.S. Open. This year, the U.S. Open's at a place called Chambers Bay. There's never been a tournament there. Nobody's going to know what to expect. They're not going to be familiar with it. When the Masters rolls around, people know Amen Corner. They know there's that par 4 with the pond, you know, just in front of it on the left, and then you walk over to the par 3, you know, over the water, and then there's the dogleg par 5 that's next. I mean, people know it. It's familiar to them. That's number one. It's imbued with a sense of history because the club was started by Bobby Jones, who's a legendary figure in the game of golf. The course was designed by Dr. Alistair McKenzie, who's another legendary figure in the game of golf. And they do things differently there, for better and for worse. It's a smaller competitive field than any of the other major championships. They still invite a number of players who really have no chance to win, but they're former Masters champions, and they're allowed to compete as long as they'd like to. Many of them have no chance of winning. There are some amateurs that they invite every year who have no chance of winning. There are some special foreign invitations who likely have no chance of winning. There's a smaller field. It's harder to get into than any other tournament, and that's what makes it special for the golfers. And the course is spectacular. I mean, I've played there a number of times, and it's the most meticulously maintained golf course you will ever see. It's beautiful. It's not the hardest golf course in the world. You know, you would also see, that's the other thing that I think is great about the Masters. You know, the U.S. Opens, it's generally about, as they say, defending par, and a couple under might win. Some years, you know, it's harder than that. Maybe somebody will get really hot like Rory McIlroy did a few years ago, like Martin Keimer did last year at Pinehurst. I think he was 9 under par. But at the Masters, it's not unusual for somebody to shoot 30 on the back 9. Eagles and birdies and all sorts of crazy things happening. And I think that's very exciting. People like to see that.
And who do you see taking home the green jacket upcoming? I mean, it could be Rory McIlroy, like you said, #1 player in the world. You got Bubba Watson, who has just dominated this course. Jordan Spieth, young gun. Who do you got?
You know what? I rarely make predictions about golf tournaments because I think it's a fool's errand. I think you can probably take a bunch of people and put them in a group and say the winner will come from this group. And all the names that you mentioned would probably be, I'd have to do some thinking about it, but certainly those would be 3 of the favorites. You know, Henrik Stenson is somebody I think people might want to be looking at. I wouldn't be surprised to see Patrick Reed play well. You know, beyond that, who knows? I mean, that's golf. I mean, golf is the kind of game where, and that again, it's all, Tiger ruined it for everybody because when Tiger was successful, you could hold a major championship and you say, I think Tiger's going to win. And the chances are you'd be right. You know, I mean, there were many years where the bet was, I'll take Tiger Woods and I'll give you the field. And the odds were longer for the field than they were for Tiger. That's crazy. Golf is such a capricious game. So many things happen, you know, bad bounces. Who knows, as I said before, how you're going to wake up in the morning, how you're going to feel on Friday. So it's too hard to predict golf. So I generally like to think about it in a group of people, from within that group, I think the winner would come. And I think I'd have to give some thought to it, but I think those 3 names that you mentioned, along with the other 2 that I mentioned, I think they'd be the favorites.
Yeah, and you know, Augusta National, like you said, it's an unbelievable course. What are some other courses that your favorite of all time that you've played?
One of my favorite courses, well, I'm a member at Westchester Country Club. people love the West Course at Westchester. I actually like the South Course at Westchester. Hudson National, yeah, here in Westchester. We've got some of the greatest golf courses in the world are here in Westchester. One of my particular favorites is in Purchase, Century Country Club, where every now and again they'll hold U.S. Open qualifying, 18 holes at Century and 18 at Old Oaks. Century is just such a great course. The pro there is a man named Nelson Long. He's a wonderful man who's been there for a long, long time, a true gentleman from West Virginia. And Ben Hogan used to be the pro a long, long time ago for a year or two at Century. But, you know, San Francisco Golf is a fantastic place. I love Pine Valley. I love Shinnecock. But, you know, the places that I'm mentioning, they're kind of like no-brainers. Who wouldn't like them? I like golf courses. You know, my wife doesn't play golf, and she used to ask me when we first met, she said, "Why do you play golf?" And I said, well, because it's a few hours to spend with people I like and not work and kind of get away from things. And it's a game, and I can challenge myself. But most of all, golf courses are beautiful places. What's better than taking a walk for a few hours in a beautiful place?
Definitely. And so here at Rye High School, we have a great golf team.
Mm-hmm.
Tee times can be flooded with juniors at courses around here. Mm-hmm. Appowamus, Rye Golf Club, Westchester, you name it. What do you believe is the outlook for junior golf going forward?
Oh, I think it's very, very bright. You know, and that I think you can lay at the feet of Tiger Woods, and now people like Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth. You know, I think when I was growing up, golf was not very cool. You know, golf is cool now, and I think that I don't think the game has changed, but I think people's eyes have been opened as to what a great way it is to spend time. It's a lot of fun, you know, I mean, and if you're well adjusted and people don't think it's cool, I basically think the attitude should be, okay, well, that's your opinion. You go do what you want to do, I'm going to go do this. And that's a hard thing to think about when you're young, but golf's a great game, and the outlook is tremendous, and I think that there are all sorts of opportunities that didn't exist when I was younger. You know, I think that the high school golf and junior golf programs are much more robust. Organizations like the AJGA, the American Junior Golf Association. I'm going to work in a couple of weeks at Augusta National on a program that's in its second year called Drive, Chip, and Putt, which is a national program, which the best of the best from around the country get to compete at Augusta National on the Sunday before the Masters starts. 80 competitors, kids from ages 5 to 15. I think programs like that are growing the game, and I think it's a great game, and I'd love to see it grow even more.
All right, Mr. Roberts, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure to be here.